On this show in the past, we have spoken to athletes who have been to 1 Olympics, 2 Olympics, maybe even 3 Olympics. Our record on this show is 8 Olympics, the great legendary Andrew Hoy. But when you speak of Andrew Hoy in a sentence, you also probably need to speak about our next guest, the great Mary Hanna, because Mary is approaching Andrew when it comes to 8 Olympics. She has been to 6 Olympics and on the cusp of a 7th Olympics. She is an absolute legend of the sport of equestrian, and I'm so excited to learn more about her journey and her Olympic experiences today and Off the Podium. And she's with me now. Mary, welcome to Off the Podium.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to speak to you because 6 Olympics. I mean, just you're collecting these like they're like baseball cards or something like that. Like, that's incredible.
Well, it's not that easy, but I wish it was.
You make it look easy, Mary. You make it look easy with that. I guess, I mean, I don't even really know where to begin when it comes to sort of going about your journey. But the one I'd like to know is when you got into equestrian, when you got into riding horses and everything along those lines, did you ever set yourself an Olympic goal? Was this something that you kind of set yourself to go to maybe 1 Olympics and then obviously the rest kind of followed the way they did?
Yes, absolutely. Originally, I wanted to go to the Olympics in the same sport as Andrew. I wanted to do it in 3-day eventing. Mm-hmm. And that was since I was a teenager. I mean, I've been riding since I can't remember when, but as a teenager, my mother was a very keen jumping rider, and we used to do a lot of 3-day events and 1-day events. And that was definitely and absolutely my goal, to go to the Olympics. But as time progressed, it changed to dressage. And even though it was my goal since I was a teenager, I didn't actually get to my first Olympics until I was 40.
Wow.
So those Olympics, I didn't even start till I was 40.
That just makes me smile.
Why? But there you go.
It makes me smile in a way because I'm not 40 yet, so you're saying there's hope.
There's always hope. Always hope.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, I'll touch on that sort of journey, why it sort of got to that point, but just with the switch from eventing to dressage, what brought about that change?
Well, I was really mad about eventing until I met my first husband. Well, I continued to be mad about eventing after I met my first husband, a Danish dressage rider. Bert Donvig was his name. And dressage was part of the eventing. So you have to do the dressage, the cross country and the show jumping. And I used to absolutely love the cross country and the show jumping. And the dressage was kind of the bad medicine you had to take before you did the rest. So that's in fact how I met my first husband, because he was a dressage instructor and I went to have a lesson with him. He's only a young man then, young in his career also. So I went to have this dressage lesson and I sort of started to get a little bit interested, and his lessons really helped me, and I think I won the next event I went in. Wow. Because I'd improved dressage very quickly. So yeah, that was sort of my first taste of it. But then after we're married, and I kept on eventing, but then I started doing both with some of the horses. I started doing eventing and dressage, and I had this beautiful horse called Dual Wave. And she was a very talented jumper, but not so good on the speed jumping, like in the cross country. It was more of a show jumper and a very good dressage horse. And one day we were eventing down in Heytesbury, and we jumped. There was a big ditch, and as I say, she was sort of good on the vertical jumping, but not so good at the a large ditch. So she landed just short of the edge of the ditch, and she actually hit her nose on the edge of the ditch, and I was on the ground next to her, and I saw a bit of blood coming on her nose, and I thought, oh no, you're too precious for this. You're such a beautiful horse, and your talent doesn't lie here. Your talent lies more with the dressage. So then she wasn't badly hurt. She was just like a little bump. But I just thought, no, this is not for you. You need to be a dressage horse only. So then I started to really concentrate on it. And I got great results with that horse. But then we had sorry, I'm going on, but
no,
there was
please do.
An international competition that we had in those days. Was one of the few international competitions we had where the judges travelled around, and it was called the Hague Cup. And my husband had this beautiful warm blood stallion called Kilof McCall, or we both owned this horse, and he had trained that horse up to a high level in dressage. And then they chose the teams for this international competition, and Gert and Killock were chosen. But then they said he couldn't ride because in those days there was different rules about being professional. So they said he couldn't ride the horse. So Gert said, well, that's no problem. My wife will ride. I was like, oh, really? Is that a fact? Okay. So I had a 2-week crash course in riding this beautiful stallion. He trained me every single day, and the stallion was very sweet and very well trained, and I was much more interested in dressage, and so it worked. And we went off to the competition, and it was a competition between a whole lot of Asian countries and Australia, the Pacific region, and we came second.
Wow!
And from that moment on, I was hooked. I thought, who invented this? This is a fantastic sport. I love it.
Fantastic.
And I just became so fascinated by the training and the intricate parts of the training and how to develop these horses that from that day on I was totally hooked.
Amazing story. When we learn a bit more about sort of that training aspect, we've had Jess Turtell and Gemma Horan on recently kind of going through those levels of it and the intricacies that you sort of touch on there to get you hooked. That's fascinating. If had you stuck to the eventing, how do you think that would have progressed career-wise? Like, would we be still talking as a 6-time Olympian?
I did get onto a shortlist for Kentucky World Championships, and unfortunately, my beautiful horse Suave had this fabulous horse, and we were doing the 3-day event in Sydney, and he had an injury that kind of took him out at that time, so I missed that one. And that was sort of concurrent with the other things that were happening. So, yeah, it was just kind of a transition there. But, yeah, I loved the eventing. I absolutely loved it. But to be honest, my eyesight isn't all that good.
Right.
And my eye for the fence wasn't brilliant. So I used to rely a lot on the horse, which is a style that you can do. Our very famous show jumping rider, Vicky Roycroft, rides with one eye. And I'm a bit the same, except I've got two, but I don't see so well out of one. But it means that your depth perception is not very good, and I don't know how Vicky does it. She's amazing.
Wow.
But when you don't have the depth perception, it's hard to measure the stride. So I guess I was destined to be probably more of a dressage rider than an eventing rider in the end.
It's the thing that I find most interesting throughout the interviews I've had in the last couple of months, Mary, with a variety of different equestrian riders from the different disciplines, and through my research, is that Australia's Olympic history really is in the eventing. We've not medalled in dressage, we've not medalled in jumping, which surprised me when I found that stat. When you made that switch to dressage, what was the dressage scene like in Australia at that point? Because we obviously don't have the storied history in dressage that a lot of other countries do.
No, well, see, dressage came much later to Australia. You know, I used to event because we lived on a property and big property. And we used to, ride around, rounding up the stock, and my sister and I, on our way around, would jump logs, and we would jump different things, and sometimes we would jump the strainer post between the paddocks. And we used to do naughty, wicked things quite a lot with our so-called stock horses.
That's another episode in itself, Mary.
Yeah, it was a natural thing for us to do. Whereas dressage was a little bit different. And, at the time we just started to get some international trainers coming over. I think Carl de Drunac was one of the early ones. Franz Moringa was one of our early ones. So the interest was just starting when I started dressage. So when I was about 15, I think I went as an eventing rider to a dressage clinic with a very famous coach called Franz Moringa. And that was the early days in the beginning of dressage then.
Because if I'm not mistaken, Australia didn't have a dressage competitor in the Olympics until 1984. Margaret McIver,
McIver. Yeah, she was our first Olympic representative, yes.
Which, again, that's fascinating to kind of think that, because equestrian's obviously, it's an Olympic staple, right? It's been in the Olympics for as long as most people can remember. But for Australia to take that to 1984, which have you seen sort of through your journey in dressage improvement in terms of numbers, more people wanting to get involved purely in dressage, and say when you were getting into it back when you started in it?
Our dressage has been constantly gathering people. It's becoming more and more popular. Whether we're keeping up with the standard in Europe, that's a whole other question. But we're having difficulty with that because we're so isolated. And, to be a good competitor in anything, you have to be seeing top competition all the time and have top trainers. And just our physical isolation makes that very difficult. Whereas with the eventing, it wasn't such a problem because we were sort of at the forefront of eventing. And with New Zealand, we had sort of somebody close by to compete with who was also very good. But dressage, we're quite isolated there. So that's why, and it's quite difficult and quite expensive to pick yourself and your horse up and fly to Europe and start competing over here. So we are a little disadvantaged in that way. But some very clever people with absolutely no money have managed to come over here and through hard work and dedication find themselves in a good position to be very competitive. But, they're very special individuals who really work extremely hard and have really gone through some difficult times, and they've managed to crawl their way to the top of the sport.
And do you also think then, with another home Olympics on the cards for Australia, that unique position where we've kind of got one fairly close to the last time we had a home Olympics, that things are being put in place that, 8 years' time in Brisbane, that dressage is going to be in an even better place than it maybe is to today?
Well, I think that'll certainly inspire people because when you have, of course, a home Olympics, you automatically get a start. So even qualifying a team for the Olympics is incredibly difficult. But Australia have been amazing because we have managed every year, time and time again, every Olympics since Magma Carver to qualify people to go to the Olympics. And of course, that's also due to John Coates' fantastic attitude that in the beginning, he was always, if you qualify, you go. So he always supported us. And that wasn't the case prior to Magma Carver going. But since he was involved, if you qualified, you went, and we've qualified and we've been supported to go. Not financially, particularly at all. Recently, you have to self-fund yourself, but supported in that they allow you to have a start at the Olympics. But in saying that, with the Brisbane Olympics, people will have to come to Europe to get to the standard required. So we still have that disadvantage from our isolation.
Still have to travel a fair distance, of course, and
Yeah.
just, we were talking about off air with a horse as well, right? So it's not kind of, pack your tennis racket in your bag and go. Like
No, because you've got all your health issues with the horse. You have to look after them so carefully, and they get jet lag and they get issues from too much flying. Although we are becoming so good at it now, we're better and better at flying the horses now and keeping them healthy and well.
Because we talked a lot about the training aspect from the athlete side of things and also the horse side of things, but how, when it comes to that travel aspect, how do you prepare a horse for, an 18-hour, 20-hour journey to the other side of the world? Because, there's ways of communicating with a horse, no doubt, Mary, but how do you train and prepare a horse for such an arduous journey, which maybe they don't even understand what's going on?
Well, normally the horse that you would take would be a well-travelled and well-competed horse throughout Australia. And if they've been successful in competition, normally they are good travellers, because if the horse is a bad traveller, it's not going to succeed in competition. So the kind of horse that you're going to be putting on the plane probably has travelled extensively and is used to that kind of routine and used to standing on a truck. We drive the horses from Melbourne to Queensland for a competition, and that's, nearly as long as it takes to fly to Europe. Not quite, but nearly. So the horses are already seasoned and used to that kind of travel. We always send our own grooms with the horses, so they're with somebody familiar. And, we can give them extra electrolytes and things to stop them getting dehydrated. The main thing is now, and it's an interesting thing that they do, is we take they used to stand in the stalls and they'd have to stand with their head up a little bit, not up higher than normal, but they couldn't get their heads down like they would normally to eat. And when they couldn't get the heads down, the mucus would accumulate a little bit in their lungs and in their air passageways. So now they have a different system, which if the horse is well behaved, they always do. They take the front rail out of the stall where they transport them, and they put their hay and water on the ground so they can actually put their heads down to eat and drink.
Oh, wow.
Now that makes almost 99% chance you're not going to get a sick horse if you can do that.
Wow.
Because they can clear their airways. And that single thing has made travelling the horses so much safer and so much easier.
Fantastic.
So that's what we know more about it now, and transport companies know more about it. We know how to travel them safely now.
It's interesting.
And then when you get there,
you just don't.
Yeah, you don't work them too hard when you get there.
Yeah.
You give them a few easy days. If you've got any worry, you immediately call the vet. You make sure the horse is well hydrated. Just those things. And then just, take it easy like we do. Take a few days, take it easy, and then gradually start back into work. And I've been doing that in Touchwood Whistle. I did lose a horse to travel sickness after the Athens Olympics, a beautiful horse called Limbo. But now we're so much better at it. All the horses I've travelled ever since then, it's all been fine.
It's just that constant development, though, because we see it with air travel, right? Like, I mean, it's obviously now we can jump on a plane from Perth to London direct, where, 20 years ago you couldn't do that. So there are little advancements that it's just fascinating to hear that, because that's one thing I've loved learning from all our equestrian guests in the last couple of months, Mary, is just that level of horse care and things that you've got to do in transporting, because it is the only Olympic sport where you are obviously relying on another living being to do your sport.
Yes. Yeah, it's not the canoe that you can stick in the hold.
No, exactly.
It's a living being. You have to
Jess Fox has it easy.
You have to be with that horse, and you've got to care for that horse every minute of the way. Yeah. Every minute.
Which it's always that connection, and we a couple of years ago when we had Andrew on, I've always asked this question to all our equestrian guests, Mary, is why on earth the horses don't get an Olympic medal. I mean, Andrew's got a few of those, so I'm sure he probably could share a couple. But I'm trying to advocate that should you get this elusive gold come Paris, that Ivanhoe should be getting a medal as well, right? Like, this should only seem fair.
Oh, I just think a box of apples would do him. He'd be more than happy.
He doesn't quite need it. He says, give me the apples. I'll touch on Ivanhoe shortly. Just before we get to Atlanta, the first Olympics, were there other prospects, sort of Barcelona, Seoul, like any other Olympics prior to Atlanta? Were you on the cusp of making a debut a bit earlier?
I wouldn't say I was that close to the others. I did have a lovely grey horse called Welcome Stranger. Before Barcelona, I think it was, yes. But yeah, we just weren't quite advanced enough at that time. But I was certainly dreaming of it before that. But then, again, it's a long story. My first husband tragically was killed in a car accident, and at that time, we didn't have a lot of money in the start. We built out, my first husband, Gert, and I, we built up our own equestrian business virtually from nothing. And we were always struggling to pay the bills. So we'd train horses up, and then we'd have to sell them to make ends meet. So, and we used to sell a lot of what we sold good horse. I sold that beautiful horse that I wanted to take to Barcelona, to Japan, because, we needed the money. And the other beautiful horse I was talking about also was sold to Japan, Jewel Way, that lovely mare, because we had to pay the bills. And I never had the luxury of actually keeping the horse long enough and being able to put in the training and go to Europe and compete to make a proper Olympic bid. But after my first husband died, sometime after that, I was giving somebody a riding lesson. Turned out to be my second husband. He was an event rider and came around to have a lesson, a bit like I did with my first husband. And we met, and that didn't work very well with the lesson, but he asked me out for dinner, and we ended up getting married. Now, the difference about that was my first husband trained me as a dressage rider, and he was amazing. And he left me with this amazing business and everything I needed to follow my dreams, and a beautiful daughter, Keita.
I'm sure she was waiting for that part. She's listening. Yeah, all right. Thanks, Mum.
But in the next phase of my life, when I met and married Rob was just an incredible person. He was mad about the horses and not a dressage rider himself, clearly. But he really supported me on following my dreams. And so that enabled me. That's why it didn't happen until I was 40, because it wasn't until I met Rob that I was actually able to keep a horse, or to say, right, I'll have to sell this horse, isn't good enough. I'll sell this horse and this horse and this horse, and then I'll buy another horse, and that's maybe a little bit more talented, and then be able to be in a position to have that Olympic dream come true. So to this very day, if it wasn't for him, I couldn't have done one of these Olympics.
Wow.
Because he is really, the wind beneath my wings. He just supports me in every possible way. And without someone behind you like that, you can't do it.
What a fascinating story. It's just one of those sliding door moments, Mary, where I guess you never know how one event in your life can change and so drastically to then push you towards that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
How it all turned out. Yeah.
Which then fast forward to Atlanta. So when you get that ticket, when you know you're going to the Olympics, I mean, what's that feeling like, knowing that you're about to achieve this dream and become an Olympian?
Well, that was kind of a torture, that one, because I won the World Cup final, the Pacific League World Cup final early in the year. And I thought, right, this is it. We're going to really go for it. So we travelled over to Sweden to train with a very famous trainer called Kira Kirkland. And we did the World Cup in Gothenburg in Sweden. And then I stayed on with her. I also had my other coach, my Australian coach, Clemens Dirks, who's a fantastic coach. He'd coached me up until that point, till I went to Kira. And then I stayed in Sweden from early in the year till Olympic selection time. But at that time, Australia did not have a place at the Olympics. It was then done on, and still is, for individual positions, because we didn't have any I was the only rider actually qualified to go on the minimum requirement. And to get there, you had to get there through rider rankings. So I was sitting probably 4 places outside having an individual position at Atlanta Olympics, right up until the last few weeks. And then I think Japan dropped out and then Denmark dropped out. So I all of a sudden got a position at the very last minute.
Wow.
Although I had planned for that, I'd planned that, I just believed and I planned that I would go. And at the very last minute, I got the spot.
So why did they drop out? Why does Japan and Denmark drop out?
I think they felt maybe a horse went lame, or that they felt that they weren't up to standard, or, their federation. Like I said, John Coates was amazing because he always supported us to go if we qualified, but not every country did that.
That's
so
crazy.
Sometimes people dropped out because they said, well, you're not scoring high enough, so you can't go.
So
you're not going to win a medal, so you can't go.
Are you absolutely now just forever in debt to Japan and Denmark? Like, these are your 2 favourite countries, basically, that kind of got you that ticket?
No, we're just going to beat them.
They're just going to beat them, yeah. That's all right.
Carried away.
That's incredible. So, I mean, when you say, like, last minute, how close is this, Mary? Like, how long to Atlanta?
A few weeks.
A few
I think
weeks?
It was a month beforehand, yeah.
Wow.
About a month before. Yeah.
So how do you even, like, you say you sort of were planning, you were hopeful, but I mean, logistically, you've got to get a horse to the United States. You've got to, get uniforms, accreditation, like things like that. Like, there must be a pretty busy couple of weeks.
I didn't have any of that till I got there, but they had a charter flight for 50 horses to fly from Europe.
Wow.
Because that was the quota of horses to go. So if one of the others dropped out, I automatically got their spot on the plane. And that was an amazing, that's things that you first do when you go to your very first Olympics. That was amazing. So we all gathered down at the Munster airport with all the horses and all the riders, and they had flags up for every country. I sort of walked in, I was like a kid in a candy shop. Like, they had champagne and things out to celebrate that you'd got there and that you were going on the plane, and then loading up the horses and then travelling with the horses. It was just so exciting, the whole thing. I was just mind blown by the whole thing.
Which, I mean, I guess
it was the most exciting thing.
You reflect on it now, you've done a few more, so you know that. But I guess your first is always that one, though, where you're kind of a deer in a headlights.
It's all new and amazing and fabulous, and you don't know what's going to happen exactly. And it just all unfolds, and it's this great big adventure.
And is it also a case, too, that, I mean, this is like the golden era of equestrian for Australia at the Olympics, right? You know, the eventing team, 3 gold in a row, like, you know, kind of that. I mean, what's the mood like in that team then, that you get to join these, reigning champions who would go on to win Atlanta and, of course, Sydney as well?
Yeah, oh, well, it was amazing. The event riders were fantastic, and you get to know them because you're all in the village together. I mean, I knew them all very well anyway because of my eventing days, so I knew them very well. But, yeah, I was sharing a room with Jill Dalton, actually.
Wow.
In the village. And And yeah, it was just the whole, and being there, being there and witnessing that gold medal that the eventers won, it was just fantastic. It was so exciting.
Because it's always that boost, like as an
It was
Olympic.
the golden days of eventing then. I mean, it was just amazing. They were just gold medals everywhere for the eventers.
Household names you're talking, Gillian, Philip Dutton, Andrew Hoy. Like these are even as I was 9 in Atlanta, Mary, but I still knew these names. Like everybody in Australia knew these household names of any sport back then like that. But I vividly remember Sydney, like just being glued to the TV, cheering them on for the 3 in a row, which was just absolutely incredible. Do you get sort of taken away too by things like village life, pin trading, like, your first Olympics? Is that something you kind of like,
Yeah, that's a big thing in the beginning, But the whole thing is amazing. It wasn't such a great village in Atlanta. And then I think there was a bomb scare, and we actually, Rob very cleverly found we were allowed to actually leave the village in the end, and it was getting quite stressful. It was about 2 hours to drive from the village in the bus, and sometimes the bus would get lost. So it was all quite stressful. So in the end, I actually stayed quite close by to the actual venue because Rob found a little motel somewhere. But yeah, that was great to be in the village. And that, just things like going to the food hall, it's the whole thing is amazing. And not without stress the first time, because you don't kind of know your way around so much. And as I said, I don't see very well, so half the time I don't even know where I'm going. I feel like I need a guide dog sometimes. But luckily, Kira looked after me. She was my coach at the time, and then I was very lucky because I had Clemens, my other coach. I had actually 2 coaches because I had Clemens Dirks there as well, and he was a great motivator for me, amazing. So yeah, I was just the only rider, and I had a good, fantastic team around me, really fantastic team.
Right.
And I had a great result because before that, unfortunately, the riders had been right down the bottom. And so I managed to actually get into the final. I mean, I went thinking, I'll just be like the other Australians, and I'll be lucky if I don't come last year. And I remember asking my trainer's partner, Kira's partner, said to Richard, Richard, do you think there's anyone I can beat there? And he sort of sucked his fingernail for a minute and went, you might beat the Italians. I was like, oh, good, I don't want to come last. Anyway, as it turned out, the horse did the test of his life, absolutely the test of his life. And I got into the final and I beat my trainer and all the other Europeans that were staying with us. And my coach, Clemens, had booked to leave after the Grand Prix, but he didn't even expect me to get in the final. So he had to rebook his plane to stay. And there was general all-round shock and amazement that I actually got into the final.
Fantastic.
So yeah, it was an incredible thing, the whole thing, the way it all worked out.
Which the 24th, which if I'm not mistaken, still the second highest finish an Australians ever had in individual dressage at the Olympics, which a great achievement. And I saw a great video that was up on your Facebook page, sort of going a little bit over your career, Mary, and you talked on that sort of the crowd that you had there at those Olympics. I mean, is that still the biggest crowd that you've performed on at an Olympics?
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, maybe it just seemed huge to me, but I'm pretty sure that was the biggest crowd.
32,000. I did my research. 32,000 was the capacity of that venue.
I think so. And it was packed. And, I remember going in with the little horse because he was very small, and he kind of grew a hand size bigger because he was like, whoa, this is important, because he was one of those horses that put his best foot forward on the big occasions. So he knew that was really important, and he grew for the moment.
Can you compare it though? Like, this might be sounds like a dumb question, but I'm hoping it's not. Like, can you compare it to Sydney? Because obviously Sydney, the crowd's probably a bit more, vocal because you're an Australian in Australia. But if there's more people versus more patriotic people, like, can you compare the crowds, if that makes sense?
Well, Sydney was a little bit different for me. And I can talk about that now. I suppose these things are interesting for people. But we had an appeal against the selection before the Sydney Olympics. And it all got pretty nasty, the whole thing. I was chosen, and then there was appeal against my selection, and that didn't hold. My selection stood. And that went sort of right up to the starting point. And it was just so stressful before Sydney Olympics for me. And it was lonely because compared to the first Olympics, where I went on a plane of 50 people and was with this huge group of international competitors. I was with the Finns and the Swedes and everyone. It was just an amazing experience. I was sitting on my own in a hotel, training with Clemens, and didn't see another soul virtually.
Wow.
Up until I went in and just trying to deal psychologically with the trauma of what had happened with the appeal, and then the pressure that I absolutely had to do well because I had to prove that I deserved to be there, and which I was able to do, and as it turned out. But the pressure on me on that Olympics was huge compared to being just the individual with no expectation.
Amazing.
So I don't even remember the crowd. I just remember riding in and just being so concentrated on my horse that I didn't even think about the crowd or anything. All I was doing was thinking about how to ride my horse absolutely the best I possibly could.
Which is probably, of all the Olympics, the one you want that to happen the least because it's at home. Like this is in Australia.
It was the Olympics I enjoyed the least. I'd have to have, yeah.
Which I have to then, like, this is a question I was going to ask at the end, but I'm going to ask it now because, like, let's say you've got some unfinished business at home then, Mary. So I'm just saying Brisbane 2032, 9th Olympics by then, you know. You're still young. You're still young, Mary. I don't want to hear this. I'll be this age. No, you're my new inspiration.
You can pull yourself out of the wheelchair, climb up on the horse.
Hey, you know, medical technology in the next 8 years.
I know, it's pretty good. Couple of new hips, couple of new knees. I'll be right.
You never know. Which, I mean, it's obviously, you know, second Olympics. So you touched on that's probably the one you enjoy the least. What's the one you enjoyed the most?
Oh, for sure, Atlanta. Atlanta was amazing. And the others were good in different ways, you know. Athens was touched with tragedy because I lost my horse afterwards, but the actual being in Athens was a really amazing being at the home of the Olympics, you know. There was something magical about that. And it was very beautiful where they had the actual venue. And again, I was there as an individual with Ricky McMillan, we both qualified as individuals. But that was a very beautiful Olympics. Again, we had our country we appealed against there. And I had to go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport just the night before the opening ceremony, because one country had appealed against Australia being there. So I think it was Russia. Anyway, in the end, they decided we could all go. Exactly. They decided we could all go, so everyone got in. But it wasn't without its moment. But as a venue and as an Olympics to be at, it was really beautiful, and there was something just so special about being at the home of the original Olympics. It was amazing.
Because it's one of those ones that I think it's got such a negative – everyone's got a negative opinion of Athens now because of the white elephants and the Greek financial issue. But, like, it was – I remember at the time when it was on how everybody held that close because there was controversy they didn't get 96 because of the centennial, but they eventually got it. But it was a great Olympics, at least from a spectator's perspective on the other side of the world.
And as a competitor, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful. And a beautiful village. Stayed in the village. It was really lovely.
Just on that, the appeal situation, Mary, we had Shane Rose on recently and we touched on the only two Olympics that Australia haven't medalled in equestrian in this millennium has Athens and London, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think that Athens, that situation that happened the night before, did that affect the overall equestrian team as to why maybe?
No, it was just my problem.
No, just your problem.
Yeah, me and Ricky. But I don't know why it was up. Can't remember why I was the one that had to go. I don't know. But actually, I shouldn't have had to go. We were never in danger. We'd qualified properly. There was never a problem. But, you know, as they say, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. You just have to go through these things and keep your eye on the ball and grit your teeth.
Well, I'm loving this progression of this journey, Mary, because like you have that, you know, Atlanta, this amazing experience, Sydney, not a great experience, Athens, there's a bit of controversy around it there going into that. But then Beijing, you don't go to Beijing. What happened with Beijing?
Well, Beijing, I had a really nice horse, but unfortunately he broke down in the crucial lead-up time, and I didn't have another horse back up. So
Right.
that's just, that's just bad luck. I missed out. I had soundness issues with the horse, and your horse comes first. If he's not 100% right, then you have to withdraw from the selection process. So
And then you have to get on the horse again, literally, to then go towards the next one.
and then that was kind of the end of his career as an international, as an Olympic prospect. So we got him better in the end, and I gave him to my daughter, and she had tremendous fun with him. He's still in my paddock today, alive and well.
Wow.
And
Fantastic.
I think he's, 26 or 7 now.
Wow.
But yeah, that's just them's the breaks. That's what happens sometimes. We don't all stay healthy and well. So then I had to find another horse for the next Olympics, and that was an amazing journey, finding that horse. The next Olympics was London for me. And I ended up finding my next dancing partner. It was a horse called Sunset that I found in America. So do you want me to tell you about that little journey?
Would love, please, Mary, keep going. Absolutely. Yes.
So a friend of mine, Brett Parbury, sent me a little video and said, "Oh, Mary, I know you're looking for a horse. Saw this little video of a horse in America. What do you think?" I looked at it and I thought, there's something about that horse I really like. And he was based with a very famous rider who will be at the next Olympics, Stefan Peters. Lovely guy. And I had a friend there, Nicole, who was McCoffin, was over there training, and I called her about the horse, and she said, yeah, it's a really nice horse. You should come and have a look. So I flew over to America just to look at one horse. Got there and rode him and really liked him. Had wasn't sure the first ride, had a few rides on him. But really liked the style of the horse, very elegant, leggy, sweet horse. But not without his little foibles. He was a tricky little character. I loved Stefan's way of training. So I thought, well, if I buy him, I have to stay here and do some training. It's no good just buying this horse and going home and thinking we're on a wing and a prayer. I have to actually make sure this is going to work. So we organised it that I could buy him and stay. I stayed for another month training, and that was really invaluable, that training, and sort of set me on the right path with the horse. So, we had quite a journey together with that horse. He did the London Olympics and he did the World Championships in Cairns, where he was the best performed Australian.
Great.
And he was just a mighty character. And I've still got that horse too. He's in the paddock alongside.
You've just got a paddock of Olympic horses just chilling.
I have.
Wow. Amazing.
And another one, I've got Kalanta from the Tokyo Olympics. She's in the paddock too.
Geez, this is like,
the retirees.
Olympic spotting of
Have a little chat about the old Olympics.
Where's our medal? No, I've got my box of apples instead. But I mean, it must make those moments then when you have more of a journey with the horse. I mean, you've got a journey, no doubt, with every single horse you've ever owned, Mary, but like to get to an Olympics and back to an Olympics too, because obviously missing Beijing, it was a bit of a longer period between Athens and London, a bit more special, I can imagine.
Well, just getting back to the first thing that you said was, did you first of all want to do one Olympics? Yes, first of all, I wanted to do one Olympics. But you do one and then you're hooked. Then you want to do two, and then you go three, and then you go, why not another one? And then you go,
9 by
there's
Brisbane.
One more. Yeah. And I keep saying this will be my last one.
And you're on the cusp of 7,
it's very addictive.
I love hearing that because as a fan of the Olympics, I'm addicted to it. I couldn't imagine if I was ever good enough to achieve making one like that. But I mean, where we're at right now, we're obviously recording this at the very end of May. We realise this is going to air very close to the Olympics. But, I mean, Paris now, 7th Olympics. Are we there, Mary? Are we on the cusp? Like, where are we at right now to get to the magical 7?
We're on the knife's edge. I think that's where we are right now.
The knife's edge.
So, yeah. By my calculations, they take 3.
Right.
By my own calculations, I'm sitting possibly in that, I call it the death seat. I'd say currently sitting in the 3rd position, but there's a few more competitions to go, and it could go either way because there's I would say 3 or 4 of us that are very, very close to that third spot. And so there's a couple more competitions to go. So we're going to have to fight it out right to the death here. And, I'm friends with the other riders. I'm good friends with the other riders that I'm going to have to fight it out with.
Well, you train them too, because I think when we Jess and Gemma were talking about, like, you sort of train them and coach them, right? So, like, they're kind of almost like you're helping out people that might end up beating you on that plane.
Yeah, well, we're all doing that. You see, Patrick Kittle trains me and his wife Lyndall, and we're going neck and neck. And I trained Jess when she was in Australia, and now she's over with a Dutch trainer. So we're going, head to head.
Wow.
And there's young Gemma's just got a great chance there. And then we've got, I'd say, Simone and Jaden are looking very good. But we're all friends, and you have to be in these situations. It hasn't always been like that, but we all get on very well together. I have the greatest admiration for my fellow competitors as we come up to this moment. And I don't believe there's any hostility anywhere. Everyone's just doing their best. All you can do is sit on your horse and ride the best you can and concentrate on doing the very best you can for yourself and not think about what else is going on around you. Just go out and ride your very best test. That's all you can do. If you get there, then that's great.
I think also what it shows, Mary, back to the very beginning of this interview, when I talked about the stocks of dressage in this country right now compared to when you got involved. I mean, you've got that many people vying for 3 spots. It seems like the sport's in a pretty good position right now in Australia. Yeah,
well, this is the strongest it's ever been before an Olympics. There's no doubt about that.
Fantastic. That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah. Well, what would it mean, though, Mary? 7th Olympics. This going back to that young girl who dreamt of 1, but 7. I mean, you already hold the record in terms of female appearances, equal up there. This could be, an out there record when it comes to that. I mean, what would that mean to be at 7 Olympics?
It would be incredibly special. And, particularly Paris, we all look and dream and hope. I visualise that arena. I visualise riding into that arena. If you dream it, hopefully it comes true.
Dreaming it, they'll come, right. Yeah, exactly. Because if you do get to 7, you'll only...
I just imagine that riding in Paris would be amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
With Versailles, I mean, what an absolute venue. But yeah, if you get to 7, Andrew's obviously been to 8, possibly 9 very shortly. So you would then become the first female to get to 7. Zhan Fang Lei, I'm not sure if by the time this is out, if she's going to be chosen for her 7th Olympics. So you could be sort of neck and neck there with Zhan. But like, it's just the longevity and the records. I mean, there's so many other records that I could go through here with what you have. It's just, and I guess it would be a way to, you joke and say, this is always going to be my last Olympics. It's going to be my last Olympics. But I mean, LA's only 4 years away, and then Brisbane at home. You're still young, Mary. Come on.
Yeah, well, I don't focus on the 7th so much. I'm more focused on, am I fitting well enough to do this? Am I riding well enough to do this? I don't want to go out and ride and not be up to standard. Is my horse good enough? Do I have the right horse at the moment? Is he sound and well and, ready for the job? And if I feel like I've ticked all those boxes, then I want to do it. And right now I really want to do it because I feel like I'm up to the job. I feel like I've got a fantastic horse. I really believe in this horse. He's got the most wonderful temperament and attitude. He's a strong, sound, touchwood whistle, sturdy individual. He's up for it. And so I feel very positive. I feel like this is our time. This is right for me. And, as long as I feel it's right for me, I will keep going. If it was, the number 7 has a great ring to it, but it's not the 7 I'm aiming for. It's the going to the Olympics, getting in the team and doing a good job. That's what I want to do.
That passion's still there. You go back to Atlanta, right? And the passion to get to 1, that same passion is still there nearly 30 years later to go to a 7th.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought I'd think like this, but I think, well, if I miss this one, he's still young, go for the next.
Young man, come on.
Because he's young. He's a young horse.
The one that I look at, I look at it differently, and I don't know how you would look at this. If you went to LA, you would set the record for the oldest ever Olympian ever. Now, that's a record that nobody can ever take away from you. I'm saying right now, just that's a record to have. Just putting it out there.
That sounds wonderful, but as I said, not my focus. My focus is keeping a sound horse. My horse is only 11. So I look at it this way, 11, 12, 13, he'd be 15,
Spring chicken,
which is a very nice age for a Grand Prix horse.
Yep.
For LA. So, as long as I feel now, because last year I didn't feel great because I had this scare with the skin cancer. But right now I feel very healthy and very well. And I don't feel like according to my coach and people around me, I'm not riding badly. In fact, my coach is very encouraging, Patrick, but he's a very positive guy. And he's a little bit like, don't you give up. Don't you dare give up, which is really nice of him. I don't know if he's just saying that but if he really means it. But I feel like he really means it.
He means it.
So as long as you're healthy and well and you feel you can ride well enough, then you just ride. You just ride. I don't know what else to do with myself. I've tried sailing. I've tried golf. I'm hopeless at golf. I love sailing, but that's too hard on my body. But, my passion is the horses. So I think I'll just ride till I drop.
It's so
and if a couple of Olympics come in the way, that's great.
It's so inspirational, Mary. And I think there's a merch line there just saying, just ride, Mary Hanna. That's just your inspirational quote right there. And I'm glad you cleared up too. I was going to touch on, health-wise, everything going all right, obviously, with the scare last year. So that's good to hear that's obviously that's looking good. So, it's so inspiring to hear you talk this way, and that we're obviously going to have so many fingers and toes crossed that you're there on that plane to Paris, Mary. Two things I want to do. One thing, actually, I want you to meet someone quickly, and then we'll close out quickly with these get to know yourself questions. This is our show mascot, Cherry. Now, he's been a bit battered and bruised and everything, but he's still going strong. Inspiration for, if you get there to Paris, do you think you could look at him, and do you think he could bring you some inspiration for Versailles in a very short time?
100%.
I'm a bit worried that it took you a while to answer that, but I like it. He has.
I think I've got something connected to him.
There you go. He got thrown across the room, and he's got a bit of a bung leg.
Quite connected.
Exactly. Good. Actually, I don't know if you can see behind me, but I've got an Izzy there. Your very first Olympics you went to, Izzy the mascot at Atlanta, and then I've got a Frige, who's the current mascot for Paris. So it's kind of poignant that I've got those two mascots behind me there. Do you get into the mascots? Do you care about the mascots when you're there, or you don't really pay attention to the Olympic mascots?
Oh, I've got a funny tiny little teddy bear.
Okay.
Like a koala.
That works.
Not a teddy. Koala. Tiny little koala.
Yep.
And I take him with me everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's he called?
Yeah.
What's his name?
So, and then I have got this other weird thing. You'll laugh at this one. Years ago, someone gave me a brick, an Olympic brick from 1954.
Oh, wow.
It was imprinted with the 5 rings. Yeah.
Yep.
And I always get it out before the Olympics because I believe it's good luck, that Olympic brick. So the 1954 brick comes out. It's actually not with me at the moment. It's on top of the fridge where it lives.
Is this at least in Germany, or is it in Australia?
An Olympic brick.
Is it back in Australia, or do you sort of bring it?
It's in Australia.
It's in Australia, right? Okay. Wow.
It was a little bit heavy for the luggage.
might come
but
across.
I always have
on
a
that.
bit of a talk with the brick.
Wow. I love the brick, the Olympic brick. I love that. A koala and a brick. That's all you need. I was going to ask you your longevity secret. It's a koala and a brick. All right, Mary, I'm going to fire off some of these very, very quickly. These are a style of get to know you style questions just to learn a little bit more about you. Team Canada got these ahead of their Rio and Pyeongchang Olympics, so I'm going to fire these off to you really quickly. I'm very intrigued for this one. The first Olympics you remember watching were?
Oh. Rome. Because of,
So 60.
Rome, because of
60?
Bill Roycroft.
Yeah.
1960.
Yeah. Wow.
Fascinated. Yeah.
I I love getting an answer like that because I'm so sick of getting these athletes on the show right now who say Rio.
It in person. I wouldn't have watched it at the moment, but I watched all the replays of it as it came up because, in those days we didn't have all that. We didn't have the ability to watch all that stuff. But that was the first Olympics that I became, even though I wasn't because I was born in 54, so I was only 6. But it was the replays of the Rome Olympics that first really interested me in the Olympics because of the stories of Bill Roycroft, because he was my idol as a kid.
Fantastic. And now you fast forward today where I know you've got an Instagram page, Mary. People probably are messaging that account going, I'm watching you on my phone, right now, like things that you could have never imagined what was there. If you could be a superhero, Mary, who would you be?
Oh, superhero.
Yes. The important questions.
What, you mean like a Wonder Woman sort of superhero?
Yeah, like Wonder Woman. Would you be Wonder Woman?
Let's go for Wonder Woman. Why
of course. You are Wonder Woman already, but, Wonder Woman's not been to 6 Olympics. So, you are Wonder Woman. I'm just saying. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to give you all that extra inspiration to get you into that spot there, Mary. You're welcome. Your favourite ice cream flavour is?
Pistachio. Ooh. Yeah, I love pistachio.
Yes. Yum. Good answer. I always like it when people answer ones that I feel need to be answered more. Whereas it's like, yeah, that's a solid answer. What is the best nickname you have ever been called?
Look, people who know me really well just call me Mares.
Mares.
Which I kind of like. At school I was called Sut because that was my surname. But when someone calls me Mares, it's kind of friendly.
Yep.
And people who know me well,
okay.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that.
I like that. If you weren't an athlete, what would you be?
I might be a painter, an artist. I love to paint.
Okay, there you go. What do you like? What do you like to paint? Like what sort of your?
When I say painter, an artist.
Yeah. What do you like to paint?
What do you think I want to paint?
Horses. You might have liked to paint landscapes.
No, not at all. No, I only paint horses. Except that when I was in hospital last year having my treatment, a friend gave me some watercolours. And watercolours are not for horses so great. And, what have you got sitting around you? Flowers in the room. So bored, stuck in room with watercolours, started painting flowers.
Beautiful. Nice.
I might say so. I don't think I was too bad at it.
Well, there you go. Do you share any of these on your Instagram or any of your social medias? Is there anywhere that people can see what you've painted at all?
Oh, I think there's a little one of my flowers on my Facebook.
Oh, we'll check it out.
Or my Instagram, maybe. Maybe it's on my Instagram.
I'm gonna tag that in just a moment. The last question I will ask you though, Mary, what is one thing you can't live without?
That's a boring answer. Well, 2 things. And I always say my horses, but I'll say my husband.
I'm glad he got a mention
and
in
my
there.
Dogs.
Yeah.
My horses.
Good answer.
He always says it's horses, dogs, husband.
All right.
But I'll say horses, husband, dogs.
Okay.
So he's gone up a level.
We won't let the dogs listen or watch this. That's fine. Mary, before we let you go, I mentioned the Instagram, Facebook, people, best places if people want to follow your journey, Facebook, Instagram, they can check those out.
Yes, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook.
Beautiful. Do you have a TikTok yet?
Facebook.
Andrew's got a TikTok. Do you have a TikTok?
No, I'm not a TikTok. No, I don't have a TikTok. Sorry.
I think that
I have enough trouble keeping up with Instagram and Facebook.
Okay. I just if Andrew's got it, I thought.
I'm not good at social media.
Right. I think compared to what I'm seeing here, I think you're doing right. No. Mary, this has been an absolute honour. Seriously, thank you so much for your time. We're wishing you all the luck for Paris. Fingers, toes, hooves, husbands, dogs, everything crossed between now and there that we can see you on that plane for a 7th Olympics and that everything goes in your favour and we see you there at Versailles.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed the interview. Thank you.